Know if you are the victim, and what can you do to prevent this from happening to you? Joining us today to talk about equal pay is Jack Tuckner, one of the leading attorneys from Women's Rights New York, a progressive law firm dedicated to the empowerment of women in the workplace. Hi Jack, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Amy.
Nice to have you here.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about Women's Rights New York and what you do there.
Well, we are a small civil rights firm dedicated to issues of women's challenges in the workplace, such as equal pay, act discrimination, pregnancy discrimination, one of the largest causes of action out of our office, sexual harassment, and anything related to unequal treatment at work. And not just for women. Anyone who is suffering what's known as disparate treatment can seek out a law firm such as ours, but we specialize, if you will, in issues that principally affect women.
How does one know that they are a victim of wage discrimination? Because oftentimes we don't know each other's salaries.
Well, you probably know you're a victim of wage discrimination if you're a woman. I mean, that's the short answer because
Good point.
Because women are paid 77 cents to 80 cents, depending upon the study in the year, on the dollar to what men earn for substantially equal work. So that's a given. In terms of how you find out if someone in your workplace who's doing the substantially same job as you are is making more money because he's a guy, you probably won't know, and you're not entitled to know. That's another one of our challenges in our culture. Certainly, if you do determine that, or even if you suspect that, you're still entitled to complain about it, and perhaps the investigation would lead to their telling you whether it is or isn't true.
So what if you do complain? I was in a situation where I was being paid significantly less than my male counterpart doing the same exact job, same exact title, and when I went to complain, I was told that it was none of my business, that I shouldn't even be bringing it up, that I should be lucky I have a job. Do you know, what would you do in that situation?
Well, once you complain to your employer, whoever the employer is and however large they are, although depending upon how many employees there are, the different laws apply. But if you complain in your workplace that you feel that you're being treated differently from other similarly situated employees, in other words, that whether it's a hostile work environment because of your gender or some term or condition or benefit or privilege or pay of your employment is different from someone else, and it shouldn't be, the company has an obligation under the various so-called human rights laws to investigate.
Right.
And they have to investigate, and then if they find that what you're saying is potentially true, they have to launch corrective action. They have to do something about it. And they're not allowed to make it worse for you as a result of the complaint. That is legally known as retaliation for the civil rights invocation. So if it's rising to the level in your workplace where you feel, you know, this isn't right, and I think I can't work this out by having a cup of coffee with my manager, or the person who is either hitting on me or not paying me enough, it's just not working on an interpersonal basis. The only option you have, and it's required, is to complain formally, in writing, in approvable fashion, period.
To HR or to?
Well, to the powers that be. Typically the powers that be, and the right person is usually the director or the vice president of human resources, but if you're in a smaller company, it's really anyone with the authority to do something about it, hire, fire, make changes. So whatever we talk about tonight is still going to come down to, if you're being discriminated against, you can't wait until something happens bad to you, like they put you on probation. You can't wait till you're fired and then come see me, and that's what often happens. People come after the horse has galloped away, they're closing the barn door. You know, you're $1 short and a day late then.
How often does higher management get involved?
Well, they get involved all the time when you do it the right way. In other words, what gives you the juice, to use a legal term here in New York, is that once you formally complain in a way, you send a letter by FedEx if you have to, let's say, or an email that says, please be advised, in effect. I feel that ever since I told this company that I'm pregnant, my boss is doing this, I'm no longer in the email loop, I'm no longer invited to golf outings, whatever. They have to investigate it, and if they don't, you now have a paper trail that they not only are, in a sense, conceding what you probably said and is presumptively true, but by definition, that could be considered retaliation. So what gives you all the leverage, and no one really sort of understands this until you kind of empower yourself with this knowledge, the leverage all comes from being aware of what the law says and doesn't say, and then acting upon it in a way that you could prove that you're trying to take optimal care of yourself in the workplace. You can't rely on the kindness of strangers in the workplace either.
Well, the situation you had mentioned, at some point, did they make it a hostile, as they say, environment for you?
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
you complained?
Absolutely, and that's why I asked. I mean, I did bring it to the powers that be, and there was no investigation. So how do, in a smaller company that,
Well,
if it's family run, or maybe it's a situation where everyone's very tight.
Well, how small were
How
they?
would you?
Well, does that
30 people.
Well, 30 people, by the way, it's small, but it's covered by every conceivable law except the Family Medical Leave Act. So it's certainly covered by federal, state, and at least in New York, state and
Yes.
local law, and most states have their own human rights law. If they make it worse for you and create a hostile work environment because you complained and they're like, you're lucky you have a job, and now that you're whining,
Yeah.
you better grow eyes in the back of your head,
Yeah.
because we're going to make it difficult for you. Had you complained in the appropriate way, not at the water cooler or in the elevator or
Right.
verbally, had you written the letter saying the same thing, but just documenting it, and it could have been, didn't have to be, please be advised and I'll see you in court. It could be a letter just saying, I'm really troubled by what's going on here and it's really bothering me. And I want to talk about it. But you're using some of the right words. You can't just say my boss is mean, or everybody's
Right.
a tyrant and I don't feel you're valuing me. This isn't a personal relationship. You have to talk about discrimination. That's all there ever is. Differential treatment. You got to use that word in one respect or another.
Why
And
do you think this discrimination occurs?
Why does it occur? Well, discrimination against, it occurs, I think, because people will always, in our culture, I think we have a tendency to abuse power because it's all about money from start to finish. So if someone is in a position, for instance, I think women in general are not in harmony with growth and expansion and sort of corporate greed and the general motivation of most companies, the feminine principle. Women that have to then leave often and somehow take care of a family and are not just all about the job. If we're talking about gender discrimination, obviously it might be different for every other reason why people are, crazy and mean-spirited.
Right.
And
Gender specifically.
Women are not regarded very well. Are they? Women are not as equally placed in our culture, any culture, yet. Long way to go. And I think that even with an equal pay issue, men often feel, if you make the same amount of money as I do, this job really can't be very valuable. I mean, it bothers me. Firemen lots of men in male jobs, when women started encroaching upon them, said, but